Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour, Ani. I'm Gurpreet Singh Broka, Vice Chair of the Greater Sudbury Police Services Diversity Advisory Committee. Thank you for joining us today for the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. This year's theme is Breaking Barriers. We would like to begin today by the recognition of this day with an acknowledgement from Haley Gaskin.
Bonjour, Ani, hello. Je suis Haley, membre du comité consultatif sur la diversité du service de police du Grand Sudbury. The Greater Sudbury Police Service strives to build positive and respectful relationships with the original inhabitants of this land, including First Nation peoples, Métis peoples, and Inuit. It is in this spirit that we, as a service, honor and acknowledge that we serve in this land that is cared for from time immemorial by Anishinaabe people of the Three Fires Confederacy. We further acknowledge this land as the dish with one spoon and the Robinson-Huron Treaty region.
Thank you, Haley. We thank everyone who has taken time out of their busy day to attend this online event. Our Diversity Advisory Committee members come from many places around the world, and today several members will be sharing their lived experiences through the conversation to bridge the gap in understanding one another. What we share is a desire to be better, to engage in learning, to listen deeper, to seek with more honesty, and to simply be present as we do that. The tree on the poster reminds us that we are a diverse, multifaceted, divergent community, and we come together to connect and build for tomorrow. The tree represents a lasting testament to the world that though we are many, we are one and we all belong.
Nous remercions tous ceux qui ont pris le temps, malgré leur journée bien remplie, d'assister à cet événement en ligne. Les membres de notre comité consultatif sur la diversité viennent de nombreux endroits à travers le monde et aujourd'hui, plusieurs membres partageront leur expérience. Ce que nous partageons, c'est le désir d'être meilleurs, de nous engager dans l'apprentissage, d'écouter plus profondément et de chercher avec plus d'honnêteté et d'être simplement présent pendant que nous faisons. L'arbre sur l'affiche nous rappelle que nous sommes une communauté diversifiée, multiforme et divergente, et que nous nous réunissons pour nous connecter et construire pour demain. L'arbre représente un témoignage durable du monde, que bien que nous soyons nombreux, nous sommes un et nous appartenons tous. Nous commencerons l'ordre du jour par le chant de l'hymne national au Canada par Kalyani, Krishnaa, Nair.
We will begin the agenda with the singing of the national anthem. Thank you to Kalyani Krishnaa Nair for singing O Canada.
Merci aux chanteurs d'O Canada.
At this time, Kristina Leader, the chair of the Diversity Advisory Committee, will be sharing a message on behalf of the committee.
À ce moment, Kristina Leader, présidente du comité consultatif sur la diversité, partagera un message au nom du comité.
Ani, bonjour, welcome. Thank you for joining today. My name is Kristina Leader, and I am chair of the Greater Sudbury Police Services Diversity Advisory Committee. Observed annually on March 21st, The International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination is important because it recognizes that injustices and prejudices fueled by racial discrimination take place every day all around the world. On this day, we reflect on the fact that although progress has been made and racial laws and practices have been abolished in many countries, Indigenous peoples, racialized communities, and religious minorities suffer from the injustice and stigma that racism brings. Canada's diversity and rich cultural heritage has been shaped by people coming from all over the world to call it home. But even in our multicultural society, eliminating all forms of discrimination remains a challenge. Today is a day to recommit our efforts to combat all forms of racial discrimination, injustice, systemic racism, and hate to ensure a world where everyone is respected, safe, and can equitably contribute meaningfully to all aspects of society. Communities continue to utilize social media tools to participate, calling on their peers to speak out and stand up for equal rights for all. This can strengthen meaningful and safe public participation and representation to prevent and combat racial discrimination, reaffirm the importance of full respect for the rights of freedom of expression and peaceful assembly, and assist in recognizing the contribution of individuals and organizations that stand up against racial discrimination and the challenges they face. Today is a powerful day to encourage people everywhere to strengthen and consolidate their voices against racism, to mobilize against all forms of racial discrimination and injustice, and to ensure a safe environment for people who speak up. It lends itself towards telling personal interest stories and can feature people and populations from across the world. As we are hosting a virtual event again this year, COVID-19 continues to have an impact on the community. This is especially true of youth from minority backgrounds, who many continue to grapple with an increase in racial discrimination, as well as challenges to their education, employment challenges, and a limited opportunity to participate in public life. This limits their individual and social empowerment. Cognitive biases are a risk that perpetuates systemic racism. A cognitive bias is a systemic error in thinking that occurs when we process and interpret information around us. This affects the decisions and judgment we make. Factors that contribute to these biases include emotions, individual motivations, and social pressures. Signs of cognitive bias include only paying attention to news stories that confirm your opinions, blaming outside factors when things don't go your way, and assuming everyone else shares your opinion or beliefs. Some things you can do to help overcome biases include being aware of your biases and consider the factors that are influencing your decisions and challenging your biases. Ask yourself, what are some factors that you may have missed? Are you giving too much weight to certain factors? Are you ignoring relevant information because it doesn't support your view? More needs to be done. Racialized communities in Canada and around the world continue to face racism and discrimination every day. Greater Sudbury Police Services Diversity Advisory Committee is a vehicle for our community to voice concerns and thoughts to make policing practices better and bring learnings to the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Krishnaa, Chair of the Diversity Advisory Committee. Next, we have Al Sizer, who is the Chair of Police Services Board.
Good morning. My name is Al Sizer, and I am Chair of the Greater Sudbury Police Services Board. Today, March 21st, we recognize the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. Across Canada and Sudbury, this date is an opportunity to reflect that while progress has been made, racialized communities continue to face racism and discrimination. The Board and Service continue to prioritize and work diligently with racialized communities to ensure that all community members and visitors feel safe and welcome in Sudbury. As a global community, we succeed and thrive the most when we collaborate and cooperate. While we'll inevitably have disagreements, collaboration helps everyone to learn and recognize the value each person brings to society. In closing, we must ask ourselves, what kind of world do we want to live in? By committing now to combat all forms of racial discrimination and injustice, we will ensure the generations to come live in a safe, inclusive world where everyone is safe, respected, and treated equitably.
Thank you, Chair Alciser. At this time, we will have Chief Paul Pedersen, who will be bringing a message on behalf of the entire Greater Sudbury Police Services.
À ce moment, le chef Paul Pedersen partagera son message au nom du service de police du Grand Sudbury.
Ani, bonjour. Hello, bonjour. Je m'appelle Paul Pedersen. Je suis le chef de police de Sudbury. Gima Paul Pedersen, Dijnakash, Wakmak Dunjaba. My name is Paul Pedersen, and I am proud to be the Chief of Police of the Greater Sudbury Police Service. I'd like to begin by thanking DAC member Haley Gaskin for the territorial acknowledgement. I'd like to also thank Kalyani Krishnaa Nair for opening our virtual event with that beautiful rendition of O Canada. And a big thank you to Christina Leader, Chair of our Diversity Advisory Committee, and Al Sizer, the Chair of our Police Service Board, for your opening remarks. Thank you to our MCs, DAC Vice Chair Gurpreet Singh and DAC member Haley Gaskin, who will be spending time with you throughout this event. And certainly, last but not least, I want to thank all of our Diversity Advisory Committee members who have prepared a table talk, sharing their stories and reflections with all of us today. As a result of our continued commitment to promote and host the International Day for Elimination of Racial Discrimination, it has now become an annual event for us here at GSPS. I want to thank again our dedicated DAC members for your dedication and commitment in making this event a reality. I also want to thank all of the community members who are here with us virtually. You are an extension of our police service. So Robert Peel once said, the police are the community and the community are the police, and you truly are part of us. It's only together and through our collective commitment of time, energy, and dedication that we can continue to work towards breaking down the barriers, acknowledging what has happened, and acknowledging what is happening all around us, and ultimately building the bridges of trust to create sustainable relationships with our community. The International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination was created to remind us all of the horrific Sharperville massacre. It has also come to mean an acknowledgement of the great strides that we've made globally since that fateful day in 1960 in collectively fighting racism, discrimination, and all of hatred in all its terrible forms. At GSPS, we continue to work hard to ensure our officers understand the importance and the applications of human rights, its strong connections to policing, and its significant role in building trust and confidence within our communities. The goal of this day is to promote unity and respect for all cultures and ethnicities here in Sudbury, and to help combat racial injustices, discrimination, prejudices, and hatred. We know that there is much work to be done, and we will continue to work with you, our community, and listen to you. We want you to know we welcome the opportunity to continue our work together through our outreach, networking, and community engagement. With the goal of working together in continued collaboration towards safety, security, and peaceful coexistence here in the city of Greater Sudbury, we will continue to put our best foot forward. Thank you for your continued support and commitment towards a community that stands up against racial injustices, discrimination, prejudices, and a community that protects and respects the application of human rights. I urge you to lead by building relationships with others, both within your community and outside of your community. True leaders embrace such relationships because relationships build partners, partners build trust, and trust builds communities. I will turn it back over to our MCs now. So sit back and enjoy this event on this great Tuesday afternoon. Thank you. Merci. miigwech.
Merci, Chef.
Thank you, Chief Paul Pedersen. It is with great pleasure that I introduce the members of the Greater Sudbury Police Services Diversity Advisory Committee as they share their stories with you. This is an opportunity to get to know the citizens of the community who sit at the table to share their experiences and expertise to advise the police service from their place of knowing. We have Claude Sharma, who will be moderating this discussion. Kayla Luke, Brady Granger, Gurpreet Singh Broka, Sebastian Ardiles, and Josh Rickard will sit together for the next half hour and open the window to the understanding, connecting, and being.
C'est avec grand plaisir que je vous présente les membres du comité consultatif sur la diversité du service de police du Grand Sudbury, alors qu'ils partagent leur histoire avec vous. Claude Sharma modère la discussion. Kayla Luke, Brady Granger, Gurpreet Singh Broka, Sébastien Ardil et Josh Richard seront assis ensemble pendant la prochaine demi-heure et ouvriront la fenêtre sur la compréhension, la connexion et l'être.
All right, thank you so very much. We are here at Cambrian College's Student Life Center for a unique roundtable discussion. And we're going to go around the table to introduce all of ourselves. We are all members of the Diversity Advisory Committee. You might hear that a lot, Diversity Advisory Committee, and especially the short form of DAC, D-A-C. So let's get on with the introductions. We're going to start off going around this way with Brady.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brady Granger. My spirit name is Blue Thunder Sky. My ancestors are from the Georgian Bay area near Penetangwisheen on Beausoleil First Nation. I am an academic chair here at Cambrian College. That's what role I play here at the college. And I'm really looking forward to this discussion tonight.
Thank you. My name is Sebastian Ardiles. I'm from Chile, married. We moved with my wife in 2021. She started studying here in Cambrian College. That's the reason, because we have Cambrian in our family. I'm working marketing and like marketing consultant and marketing director from a software company from Latin America. And I'm so happy to be here. Repeat.
Awesome, guys. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Gurpreet Singh Broka. I came to Sudbury in 2015 as an international student right here at Cambrian College. I've been in this student center so many times. Love to be in this setting today. And my current role is the Vice Chair of Diversity Advisory Committee. Alongside, I work full-time at TD Can Trust as the Manager of Customer Experience.
Hi, my name is Josh Rickard. I am a sergeant with the Greater Sudbury Police Service. I'm in charge of the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion portfolio. I am originally from Serpent River First Nation. I am Ojibwe and Cree, and I'm happy to be here.
Okay, my name is Kayla Luke. I came to Sudbury in 2019. Previous to that, I lived in Brampton for about 19 years. It was quite unaffordable, and that's sort of the reason that it pushed me here. And I left the private corporate world to join the government, where I'm a manager.
All right, thanks everybody. And I'm Claude Sharma. I am the host of this roundtable discussion. I moved to Sudbury in 2015. I lived all over Northern Ontario, North Bay, Sudbury, back to North Bay, Timmins, and I moved here for work for a previous profession. My dad is from India, my mom is from Quebec. That's why I have the French first name and the Indian last name. And I'm so happy to be a part of this really unique discussion and to open up the forum to each and every one of you. So that's where we'll start, is with the Diversity Advisory Committee, the DAC. What kind of drawed you into it, and why did you join it?
So I've been a liaison with the Greater Sudbury Police Service for the DAC committee from the EDI portfolio for the last year and a bit. Been really learning a lot about the different cultures in our community and really trying to move us forward from the diversity side and inclusion and equity.
And Claude, to your question, my reason to be at the Diversity Advisory Committee was simply as I believe in the perspective of representation matters. And I think the growing city of Greater Sudbury in terms of demographics is concerned has seen a big change with a lot of international students coming in, and I, being an international former student of Cambridge College, wanted to make sure that there's some voice at the table for particularly my community, from the Sikh community and the Punjabis overall. So this was a lovely chance brought up to me by some of my peers who were on this committee earlier. And I think I'm trying my level best to contribute to that aspect of representing the community and bringing a lot of feedback on the table.
Thank you. In my case, I come from a country when we saw racial discrimination with some immigrants. That's the reason I want to help with my contribution to try to avoid this kind of conduct here in Sudbury, because in the last time we saw like a fast growth of Latin American community here in Sudbury. That's the reason, because I think we need to contribute with our culture, with our customs, with our ideas, with these kind of things to avoid the racial discrimination here in Sudbury.
For me, it's pretty personal. I saw the call out on social media for members, and I've spent a lot of my life swimming upstream, and I didn't think I had a voice for a really long time. And now that I found it, I want to be able to use my voice to help others if they feel like they don't have the voice, to really make a change and make our community a better place to be for everybody.
All right, so we kind of a unique group here. We also have representative from the Greater Sudbury Police Service, and you, Sergeant Josh Rickard. You've been a part of the DAC for about a year now. What have you noticed so far in the past year, whether it's growth, new people coming on board? Kind of give us the lay of the land over the past 365 days.
You said it, it was the growth. We had a very small group to begin with, and then once we did some recruiting over the last year and a bit, we recruited almost 12 members, give or take. And it's beautiful to see the diversity around the table, the different thoughts, the different lived experiences. Brings so much to us as a police service to be able to throw ideas on the table and watch them come out totally different or reaffirm that we're on the right path. So I think that's super important for us as an organization of the community, is to hear from the community.
And Gurpreet, you're the most tenured member of the DAC, sitting right here right now. So March 21st marks the International Day for Elimination of Racial Discrimination. What does this day mean for you specifically?
I think, Claude, every day is a day where I think we're not immune to racism, whether it's Sudbury, whether it's Ontario, Canada, or overall the globe. And especially with all the revolutions and all those protests that we see every day in and out, is like a reminder that I think it's not just a one day done thing. It's a regular reminder we need to set. And this is one day where we can just all gather together, put our brains and thoughts towards the one single idea of how we can take necessary steps, take the mandatory steps that I should say, to eliminate as much as possible those biases, those discriminations, those those consonantal changes that I personally believe are there in the communities, which I basically think is this day is one of those reasons, which gives us a reasoning why we can put our brains together on that single moment and have that lived experience talked about, or any certain instrument that we can use to really like motivate ourselves and others and inspire others to be in a better setting. Use this day as a tool instead, and work towards that progressive, that common goal that we should all achieve.
How about you, Kayla?
For me, I just see it as moving the needle forward. I don't believe we'll ever be able to eliminate racism, at least not in this lifetime. It seems to ebb and it flows, and at one point, one community will be under fire while another one is completely just not a part of the conversation. So for me, I think it's a day to come together collectively, all communities from across the world, and acknowledge all of the sacrifices and all of the things that we're going through in order to just belong wherever we're located geographically. So the importance of it for me is to join in other people's suffering, but also join in the celebration of the progress that's been made, all of the glass ceilings that have been broken, and just how united we can be. And through that unity, that means we're all covering one another. So when one person's under fire, the rest of us are protecting them. So that's sort of how I look at that day.
How about you, Brady?
I'm with all of you. It really is just taking where we're at now and really just moving that needle just that little bit further, and really recognizing that we're not there yet and that there is work that needs to be done, even in our own backyard. And it really gives us a day to spotlight it, and really work towards what we're doing as a community and how we can help support those that aren't there yet, and how we can move that needle even just that little bit further towards inclusion and belonging for everybody.
And you have a unique perspective on this, obviously being officer of the law. What does this day represent for you?
An opportunity to listen. I feel like that's the biggest part, right? The police profession hasn't always had a great light, and we've acknowledged it in our Indigenous communities of what the police profession was a part of. Doesn't reflect everybody who wears the uniform. It doesn't reflect what we are today. We've made strides, we've made changes, and things are improving. We are working towards that International Day to eliminate racism and discrimination, and we continue to push forward on that because we want to be that community support, that community protector, and move the needle forward with everybody.
I know just being a part of this committee, that's one step in the right direction. Some of the pillars about this day is to promote equity, diversity, and inclusion in our community and even beyond it as well. So Sebastian, how can we do that? This is one step. What are some other steps?
Absolutely. I think we need to make some support about how we can understand the different cultures. We need to understand that person is a person like us. The most important thing is the individuality of each person, and each person have different kind of thinking about believing, etc. That's the reason, because the human being is so diverse. When we understand the diversity of the people, we can understand how we can integrate that difference and make the rich difference between them.
Kayla, do you want to add to that?
I would say I would add an additional pillar. So you said diversity, equity, and inclusion. I would like to add in that accessibility piece, because just making some of these resources that we're developing for the community accessible for everybody, and coming together in places like this, but also bringing the community together to get their input, to understand their perspectives. So for me, it's just about never forgetting that my lens is not everybody's lens, and always to be open-minded and listen to what somebody is saying, and to sort of remove my emotions from the topic so that I can be strategic in how I'm serving this community, and I can be strategic in how it's going to be left in a better place than when I got it, because when I leave it, it's going to be left for my children.
That's a great point you bring up. So we're halfway done this question, haven't gone around the table yet. Let me just add that pillar that you just mentioned, accessibility. And I'll start with you, Josh. So what can be done to promote equity, diversity, accessibility, and inclusion in our community?
I think from what I said earlier is listening, right? And I love what Kayla said, and looking at it from another lens. I think I'm new to the space myself, not just from a lived experience, but from my work position. And I'm always learning and looking at things now and saying, if I was in this situation, how would I feel? Right? And if, our community members could walk around for a day and ask themselves, when they see somebody different, what's your first reaction and why do you feel that way? And ask yourself that and learn and reflect. I think we have could work towards that equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging, because people will be thinking from that different lens.
How about for you, Gurpreet? What do you think can be done?
I think, as my colleagues and my friends rightly said, giving everybody a chance, giving everybody an opportunity to speak up, to bring up their voice, and giving them that confidence that many may not have in present day times. When Kayla added to the fact that we should also look into accessibility piece, I think for a second I went back to my original saying from our Sikh scriptures that I found is, in our faith, we have a strong sentiment towards the statement which says "Manas ki jaat sab ek hai pehchan wo," which actually in English means considering entire human race as one. And you can only consider the entire human race as one if you have an equal chance for everybody, if you give everybody their fair share that they should have. From what you were just talking about in terms of the work done, I think it's the driving factors towards the work is, from me, when I started doing a little bit of work that I try to do in the community, is the main reason was there wasn't many turban wearing people in this community back in the day when I showed up here. There were some, but not as many as in today's time. So my motive behind that was to try and deliver some results, which drives away those feelings of hate, that racist feeling, that biased feeling, and that bringing those cognitive biases into an area like this today, and have those open chat sessions with these individuals and say, what are those feelings? What are those driving factors that are making you feel a little different towards me and towards people looking like me?
And finally, Brady.
I'm with her, Josh, especially, that listen to people's stories. Their lived experience tells a lot about what can be done and what can be shared with others to really elevate perspective. And looking at unconscious bias, right? Like everyone has it, but how do you check your biases and really listen deeply, not just hear the words, but really listen and reflect on people's lived experience.
Let's talk about lived experience. This is one of the more uncomfortable parts of this discussion, but something that's necessary to move it forward. Kind of just a show of hands here, who has dealt with racism or discrimination? Yeah, I think all of us. So as candid as possible, you don't have to go into too much detail, but do express and Gurpreet, we'll start with you. Maybe an experience you had recently, or maybe when you were in India, something where you dealt with racism or discrimination.
From my lived experiences, I think I've been called various names when I was working at a grocery store. I've been told that certain merchandise will not be bought because they've been touched by me in the past. And these are some experiences which you cannot shy away from, because they stick to you in your memory for almost going forward in your entire career and your lives, wherever you're working. And when you go back home, you really look at yourself and see, I didn't do anything different. I literally just was doing the same thing that any other individual would have been doing. But why was I looked up in a different way or form? One recent story that I had, Claude, and I have a gimmicky one is, and I know this could not be treated the racism way, but one way is generalizing a lot of communities is something that I personally have an issue with. Which I would love to correct. And it was me stopping by at a restaurant, trying to pick up something for my order that I had just ordered as a normal customer. But as soon as you enter, you don't get greeted by saying hello. You get greeted by saying, what's your skip the dishes order, right? So I'm not a necessary skip the dishes driver. I may have driven it one day, but I'm not all the time driving skip the dishes. I shouldn't be treated as one of those other drivers that always just shows up. I could be just a customer waiting for some of my other peers to come and join me at the table. But that was just certain incidents, and then getting those name calling and all that stuff, I think has happened to pretty much everybody, I think, in many different ways and formats. These are certain things that I can just recently think of. And I think every single day there is a different way we live it. And sometimes we just don't say anything, because as much as you want to try and take it up, there is that feeling in you that, what will be the repercussion in the end. But I would love to hear from my counterparts and see what their experiences has been.
Kayla.
So for me, when I think about this question, I think about the learning and the unlearning that I had to do. So when I was growing up, and I was born in Canada, so when I was growing up, there was one word for everything. Racism was the word. So no matter what the experience was, you would call it racism. Somebody's following me in the store, it's racism. Somebody is surprised that my English is clear when I speak, that's racism. But now, most recently, maybe in the past 10 years, they've decided to define these things. So they've decided to put terms like microaggression. So for me, it's unlearning what I was calling racism and learning what it actually was, and understanding what a racist is and what a person who just doesn't understand the systems that they've been born into are. So for me, it's really building up my toolkit to say, I didn't really like how that person looked at me, but I'm not going to do the same thing to them that they've done to me. So I'm always going to conduct myself in a way that's true to myself. So for me, and it happens a lot, mostly in the workplace, it's when people speak down to me, the automatic assumption of my age and my capabilities and the things that I bring to the table. And for me, it's always just listening to how they speak to me and then replying back in a way that exudes authority, but also lets them know that you might have made a misstep. And if you exclude me from this conversation, you're not only not going to meet your goal, you're going to be coming back to me to redo your whole process. So for me, it's separating myself from racism, which I have experienced, but the racism doesn't impact me as much as people's perceptions of me. So it's that constant education that I'm handing off to people while staying mature, saying, listen, when I was growing up, I didn't have these resources either. Nobody gave me a toolkit. Nobody educated me. They just called it racism. So I have to approach it realizing that I grew up thinking a lot of people were racist and they weren't. The same way that people had their misconceptions of me, I had misconceptions of people. So that's sort of the lens that I apply to it. I'm not coming from the best place either. So now I just need to educate and be educated by people. Because I have this thing where I wonder, while everybody's calling themselves an ally, nobody's holding themselves accountable for keeping these systems in place. And I'm accountable too, because I'm accountable by my silence. I was silent for a very long time because I'm just trying to get from one day to the next in the most calm manner possible. So that's sort of the lens that I have on racism. It's going to take me a long time to say this was for sure a racist situation that I was in. And there are a couple, but when I went back to my mom, she didn't understand how to explain racism to me because she was born in Jamaica and they just didn't have those same problems. So she never told me what it would look like. And it was actually the white people on my street that realized I was in a racist situation and they took me out of it. So while white people subjected me to it, white people took me out of the situation. So it's always that give and take, that push and that pull. And I was maybe in grade 5, so I guess you're about 12 or 13 when I can say that I really truly experienced it for the first time because they were very overt about it versus covert. So in terms of like my lifespan, probably a lot of racist things that I've gone through, but I liken it to a lack of education. And I'd like to think that if they knew better, they would do better. And we were all born in this system together. So I more look at it as I'm only going to potentially judge those who are not willing to take the education that's now available to us that was not available when I was growing up.
Josh.
Growing up, I grew up in a First Nation community, but I attended school in Elliott Lake. And the community was much more open because the First Nations were so close to the community. It was kind of and a lot of the First Nations worked in the mines that were in a location. So it was very different when I was growing up. Did I experience racism? I couldn't tell you as a young person. But I always looked at things differently. I always looked for the positives. I didn't really pay attention to that. It wasn't until I became in this role that people started pointing out things that, you know, they've experienced being an Indigenous person and start thinking, oh, I always thought, people looked at me when I walked in the store because I was tall and good looking. Right? I mean, so I was Native and they thought I was going to steal something. So when it comes to that, I've experienced some wearing the uniform, being a police officer, and some even from our own Indigenous people, saying comments that, that I'm not really an Indigenous person. I look like it on the outside, but I'm not on the inside because of the uniform that I wear. And it took me some time to understand and to reflect on, what I've experienced and what I've learned throughout the last couple of years anyways that I've been in it. But even at work, it was always the consideration that, you're Indigenous, your culture, you should know. And they would ask me about different things about the culture, but residential schools did their job. I don't have my culture. I'm learning now, which is great for my children. But it was a thing at work. All these Indigenous, you should know. And that's always tough, right? And it's no fault of their own. Again, it's the education piece, right? It's the understanding piece. And as we, as an organization, grew and started to teach and started to learn, more and more people started to understand. And rarely do I ever get that comment at any time, really, because people are becoming more aware and more understanding. And I always look at the positives, and I'm really glad that we are headed in that direction. Is it perfect? No. Are we still have people out there that still need to learn? Absolutely. But I think we're on a great path, and I think positively that someday we'll get to that utopia, and it'll be a great day.
How about you, Brady? How did you deal with one of your experiences?
Yeah, it's interesting. So growing up, I've always felt different, always looked different because I wear boys' clothing. I like my hair short, but so I couldn't tell you if it was racism, homophobia, against my gender. And it's gone all the way through my life, especially about gender. Coming out as two-spirited was like the best day of my life because I finally felt like I was myself and I was able to be myself with others. But people don't understand gender pronouns still. So we've come a long way. We're still moving, in the right direction, but was it racism? I don't know. I can tell you that I'm kind of white passing, so I'm Indigenous, but I can pass as Caucasian. I wasn't allowed to know I was Indigenous growing up, but just with my family lifestyle. So it wasn't until I was an adult that I found out. Since then, I've been learning about my culture and my background. Still a long way to go, but at least I'm starting to learn. So was it racism? I don't know. It probably was in some respects, but a lot of it was more because of how I look and how I present myself as a two-spirited person.
And to wrap up this question, Sebastian.
Thank you. I feel that in some cases, very extreme cases here in Sudbury, when the people are afraid about the people coming from other countries and they don't understand the reason, or maybe don't understand the motivation of the people, are afraid of that and start harassing. The harassing is created when the people doesn't understand the things. I just want to tell you those two experiences. I think they are very nice of the other side of that things. When you saw a group of kids with different races, okay, you don't see people there, kids being racist. They are kids and they play. They don't care about the color of the skin, the gender, or maybe the origin. And that's the great thing of the humanity. And we think the humanity need to maintain that thing when they grow.
And finally, you kind of answered the final question with your experiences, and kind of wanted to end off on more of a positive note. So you've all put it so eloquently. This has been kind of a journey, reflection, one of learning. So this is for anybody. Doesn't have to go around the table. Just feel free to answer it, whatever comes to your mind. What have you learned along the way? Do you feel any different now than, let's say, that first time you really felt hurt? Is there something that you can now say, you know what, I pass this on to somebody else. I'm a better person now because I'm helping the situation. So I'm just popping it up. Whoever wants to answer it, go right ahead.
I think that's the key of the integration. When you understand the other culture and the other culture understand your culture, start making a balance. In our case, the Latin American people, we are a lot of enthusiastic. We are so close to the people. We like to touch the other people. We like to talk about the emotional things, and we try to go inside your life and understand your marriage, your kids, your life, your past. I think when you understand you are going inside our culture, you need to adopt some things. And the culture need to understand you are from our cultures and you have another principles maybe, or another basis of social actions. And that's maybe is the base of the end of racism, or maybe the end of not understand the different cultures.
Well said. Anybody else?
I think just understanding the prerogative that, again, drives those feelings, right? Just basically going back to the root cause of the issue that we sometimes try to do problem solve. It all comes down to open dialogue, right? Like it all comes down to chat sessions like these. And when Greater Sudbury Police Service, or when my workplace at TD, or when Cambridge College, when I see these dialogues happening in different capacities, in different spaces, different settings, whether it's education, whether it's banking, whether it's utilities, whether it's policing, I think it all makes out to be in a better society as a shape and form is concerned. I think as a citizen, as a good Samaritan, should always understand what is basically the root cause of what this person is feeling from me. And especially going back to my days, for example, when I told about, being name called, being told, being sometimes greeted in a different greeting, which belongs to a whole different faith, but just because of my identity, there's an identity crisis I faced because of the way I looked, and people would try and greet me. And my answer sometimes after regularity was greeting them in my language, and then they would understand that, oh, they did not expect the response that they normally would expect from a person from, and now I'm referring to the Islamic faith, because I used to get a lot of Assalamu alaikum, right? And I know how to respond to that, but I would like to respond to you in my language, in my faith, because if we contain our legacy is only because of our language, and that's all where it all starts from. So if you lose your language, you lose your legacy, you lose your culture, you lose representation, you lose the courage to speak up in your own ground, in your own setting. I think it goes down to the fact that, going to that person and saying, this is what I like to say, and then telling them, and, increasing their wisdom and trying to add on, and then also getting back to know what they call as a good morning or hello or good night in their language. And I think it all starts from there. These are some general conversation starters. And in my opinion, it all started from me when I was in a bus, going to college, going to get groceries. And it was just me sitting with a stranger pre-COVID days. And then just having those general dialogues, I think this is what opens up the space. And it has to be in a setting like this, where it's authentic, where it's not prepared, where it's all random, where it's unexpected, and you deliver what your heart says.
And I'll just jump on that just for a second, that I spent so long not being myself and hiding who I was, that the moment that I was finally my authentic self, I found that people were more interested in learning about me, and I was happier and just more comfortable in my own skin, if you know what I mean. So taking on what you're saying, having that authentic conversation but just being your authentic self all the time was my biggest lesson that I've learned, and one that, well, obviously I'll never go back to not being who I am, but I find that more people are, they ask me questions and, are you okay if I ask you? Well, yes, absolutely. Like, I'd rather people ask me questions so I can help them understand too.
So that kind of wraps up this whole roundtable discussion with the Diversity Advisory Committee. So thank you so much, Kayla, Josh, Gurpreet, Sebastian, and Brady. We still have a little bit more left in this day to eliminate racial discrimination. So we'll head back over to you.
Merci Claude, Kayla, Brady, Gurpreet, Sébastien et Josh.
Thank you, Claude, Brady, Kayla, Gurpreet, Sebastian, and Josh.
En terminant, nous tenons à remercier chacun d'entre vous pour votre présence aujourd'hui. Cet événement n'est qu'un des moyens par lesquels le service de police et la communauté encouragent les gens à poursuivre la lutte contre la discrimination raciale. Nous savons que nous pouvons tous ensemble créer les changements pour construire une communauté plus inclusive et accueillante. Veuillez transmettre les enseignants d'aujourd'hui à ceux de votre entourage et soyez des ambassadeurs pour l'élimination de la discrimination raciale.
In closing, we want to thank each one of you for your attendance today. This event is just one of the many ways that the police service and the community encourages people to continue the battle against racial discrimination. We know that all of us together can create the shift to build a more inclusive, welcoming, and a better community. Please pass this teachings from today to those in your circle and to those in your networks, and be the ambassadors for the elimination of racial discrimination.
Encore merci, merci miigwech, et passez une bonne journée.
We would love to hear your feedback. We sent you a SurveyMonkey link via email, so please take a few minutes to fill it out. Thank you once again.
Nous aimerions avoir vos commentaires. Nous vous avons envoyé un lien SurveyMonkey par email. Veuillez prendre quelques minutes pour le remplir.